My name is Keziah, and I'm 30 years old. I remember the day I walked into my parents' house for Thanksgiving like it was yesterday. The table was set, the smell of turkey filled the air, and the sound of my father's booming voice was unmistakable as he called for everyone to sit down. My brother, Daniel, was already there with his wife and kids, laughing and chatting with Mom and Dad, as usual. As soon as I walked in with my kids, I could feel the shift. The warmth that always filled the house seemed to fade the moment my children stepped through the door. "Mom, Dad, you're not really letting Keziah's kids stay, are you?" Daniel's voice sliced through the room, his words dripping with the same entitlement he always wore. I glanced at my parents, standing there awkwardly. They didn't look at me. Instead, their eyes kept darting between Daniel and his family. The tension was thick. We just thought it'd be better for everyone if you left them at home this year," my mom said, her voice tight, almost apologetic, but not apologetic enough. I felt a cold wave of shock hit me. I had no words at first. My kids, who had always been a part of Thanksgiving dinners since they were born, suddenly weren't welcome? It wasn't just an exclusion. It felt personal. I looked at my children, their faces filled with confusion and hurt. They didn't understand why they were being left out. My youngest, Ellie, tugged at my sleeve, whispering, "Why can't we stay, Mom?" I smiled at her, trying to mask the disappointment that was creeping up on me. "It's okay, sweetheart. Let's go sit in the car for a bit," I said, taking her hand. As I led them out the door, the weight of what just happened began to settle in. My parents had always favored Daniel. Ever since I could remember, he had been their golden child, the one they praised, the one they doted on. I was always the one left in the shadows, doing my best to please them, to earn their love. But it never felt like enough. That day, I realized something. They didn't care about my kids. They never did. It was all about Daniel and his perfect little family, just like always. I had spent years trying to prove my worth, but no matter what I did, it was never enough to win their approval. As I sat in the car with my kids, I could feel the sting of rejection, sharper than anything I had ever felt. For the first time in a long time, I felt something else creeping in. Anger. I wasn't angry at my kids, but at the situation. I was angry at how my parents had treated me and my children, as if we were lesser, as if we didn't matter. It didn't make sense. I had always been there for them. The countless times I'd dropped everything to help them with whatever they needed. I had supported my parents when they were struggling, when they needed money, or when their business went under. Yet they couldn't even show a little love to my children. My own flesh and blood weren't even welcome at the one holiday that was supposed to bring family together. The hours that followed were unbearable. I drove around aimlessly, letting my mind race with thoughts of what had just happened. I kept replaying the words in my head over and over again. It wasn't until my phone buzzed with a message from my mother that I realized how deep the wound really went. "Keziah, I'm sorry about earlier, but we just think it's better for Daniel's kids to be with us this year. It's just easier." The text was cold, no apology for the pain caused, no acknowledgement of my children's feelings. It was just another excuse, another way for them to avoid the real issue. I put my phone down, feeling more alone than I had in years. That night, as I tucked my children into bed, I promised myself that things would change. I wasn't going to let them do this to us anymore. I had spent too much of my life trying to make them happy, trying to fit into a mold that wasn't meant for me. But from now on, I would put my family first. I would protect my children and myself, even if that meant breaking away from them. I didn't know how I would do it yet, but I knew one thing. I was done being the lesser child. As the days went by, I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. Thanksgiving came and went, but the sting of being excluded from my own family's celebration lingered. Every time I thought about it, my stomach twisted in knots. My parents had never made me feel like I was enough, but this was different. This was them telling me, in no uncertain terms, that my children weren't welcome. And the worst part was, I was expected to just accept it. It wasn't just the exclusion, It was everything that led up to it. The constant feeling of being overlooked. The times I would show up with a gift for my parents, only for Daniel to show up with something even bigger, something that would steal the spotlight. The times I would visit them, only to hear them rave about Daniel's latest accomplishments while completely ignoring my own. I had tried to live up to their expectations for so long, to prove I could be just as successful, just as worthy. But in the end, it never mattered. No matter what I did, I was always the other child, the one who didn't measure up. And my children? They were just extensions of me, so they too would never be good enough. A week after Thanksgiving, things took a turn I hadn't seen coming. I was sitting at my desk trying to focus on work when I received an unexpected email. It was from my credit card company. I opened it quickly, expecting it to be a routine update, but instead it was an alert about unusual spending. I scrolled down, my eyes widening as I saw the charges. Thousands of dollars spent over the past few months at high-end stores and restaurants, things I had no memory of buying. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized what had happened. My parents had been using my credit card without my permission. They had charged things to my account and I hadn't even noticed. They had always been good at hiding their actions, making excuses when I would ask questions. But this was beyond anything I could have imagined. They'd stolen from me, from my family. They'd crossed a line that I couldn't ignore. I felt sick. How could they do this to me? After everything I had done for them, helping them out when they were in debt, fixing their house when it fell apart, this was how they repaid me? By stealing from me, by using me as their own personal piggy bank? I immediately called the bank, trying to reverse the charges, but I knew that would only be the beginning of what I had to face. I needed to confront them, but I couldn't do it the way I usually did, with quiet submission and just a hint of anger. No, this time would be different. This time I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. When I confronted them, my mom didn't even look ashamed. She was defensive, almost as if she had done nothing wrong. She claimed it was an emergency, that they'd had to buy gifts and pay for unexpected expenses. But her excuses fell flat. I knew better. She had used my card because she thought she could get away with it, just like always. Daniel, of course, sided with her, saying things like, "It's no big deal. You can afford it, Keziah," and "Why are you making a fuss over this?" He acted as though it was nothing, as though I was the problem for even bringing it up. That's when it hit me. They didn't respect me. They never had. I had spent my whole life doing everything I could to keep the peace, to make them happy. But it was never enough. I was done. Done with being their doormat. Done with feeling small and unimportant. The next morning, after another sleepless night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them steal from me anymore, not financially and not emotionally. I'd already cut off access to my bank accounts, but that wasn't enough. I needed to make sure they never hurt me again, and I was going to do it in the most definitive way possible. I would cut them off, completely. No more support. No more financial help. I was going to sever the ties that had kept me bound to them for years. The guilt that had once weighed me down seemed lighter now. I could feel a weight lifting off my shoulders as I realized this was the only way to move forward. I didn't have it all figured out yet, but one thing was clear. I was taking my power back. It wasn't going to be easy, and I knew they wouldn't take it well, but I was tired of being the one who always gave in. Tired of being the one who always showed up, always did the right thing, while they took advantage of me. I had to stand up for myself, for my children, too. And so, I started to make my plans, making sure that no matter what, I wouldn't let them have any more control over my life. The change was coming, and it would be big. I didn't know what it would look like just yet, but I was finally ready to face it. The days that followed were a blur of emotions. There was a heavy sense of finality in the air, something I hadn't felt in years. I spent most of my time reflecting on the years of sacrifices, the unspoken expectations, and the deep resentment I had buried inside me. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was determined to no longer let my parents dictate my life. I knew what I had to do next. I had to make the hardest decision of all. I was going to cut them off, completely. I had already stopped the financial support. No more credit cards, no more helping them with bills. But this was different. This was about emotionally severing ties. I spent hours drafting the letter. I had to choose my words carefully. I didn't want to sound vindictive, but I needed to be clear. This wasn't about me trying to get back at them. It was about me taking control of my own life and my children's future. Dear Mom and Dad, I've spent my life doing everything I can to make you proud, to earn your love and respect. But what I've learned over the years is that no matter what I do, it's never enough. I am done seeking your approval. You've excluded my children from your family, and when I needed your help, you betrayed me financially. This is not the family I want for myself or my kids. I've made the decision to distance myself from you, and I am cutting all ties from here on out. I wish you well, but I will not be part of a family that treats me this way. Keziah. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders as I finished writing it. I stared at the screen for a long time before hitting send. I wasn't sure what I was expecting from my parents, but I knew one thing. They were going to be furious. I wasn't wrong. The first response came within an hour. My phone buzzed with an angry text from my mother. She was furious, calling me ungrateful, telling me I was overreacting. She asked me what had happened to the family values I was raised with and how I could abandon them after everything they'd done for me. I could almost hear her voice in the words. The guilt was there too, trying to creep in, but I refused to let it. This time, I wouldn't fall for it. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, my father called. He was livid. He accused me of betraying them, of ruining the family. The anger in his voice was palpable, and for a moment, I almost felt the urge to back down. But I stayed strong, something I had never done before. I'm doing this for me, Dad, I said firmly. For my children. I will no longer let you control me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him trying to come up with a response, but nothing came. I hung up before he could say anything else. But my parents weren't the only ones angry. Daniel, too, weighed in. Of course, he sided with them. Daniel, the golden child, the one who could never do wrong in their eyes. He texted me angrily, telling me I was ruining the family. He said I needed to stop being so dramatic and grow up. His message was full of entitlement, as usual. He didn't understand. He had never had to fight for anything in this family. Everything had been handed to him. His words were sharp, but I wasn't going to let them hurt me anymore. I didn't respond to him. I didn't need to. A few days passed, and I thought the storm might pass, but then something unexpected happened. I got a letter from a lawyer. My heart sank as I read it, realizing what was happening. My parents had taken things to the next level. They were claiming grandparents' rights. They wanted to legally demand access to my children, even after everything that had happened. They were trying to manipulate me with legal threats, just like they had with everything else. They thought they could scare me into giving in, but this time I wasn't going to let them win. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. I called a lawyer. This was it. I was going to fight back. The legal battle that had once felt impossible now seemed like a necessity. My children were everything to me, and I wouldn't let anyone, not even my parents, take them away from me. As the days went on, I became more and more resolute in my decision. The legal battle was about to begin, and I was ready for it. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but the idea of standing up for my family, my chosen family, filled me with a strength I hadn't realized I had. And just when I thought things couldn't get more intense, I got a call from a family friend who had always been close to my parents. She told me about a conversation she overheard between them. They were discussing how to discredit me and how they could turn the rest of the family against me. The thought of my parents trying to destroy my reputation, just to get what they wanted, made my blood boil. But I knew what I had to do. I was done playing their game. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the power to choose my own path. The legal battle was only the beginning of what would turn into a long, exhausting fight. I spent weeks meeting with lawyers, gathering documents, and preparing myself for the emotional toll this would take. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about my children's future, my peace of mind, and the right to live without being manipulated by my parents. Each day, I woke up with a new determination. My children were my priority now, and I couldn't let my parents destroy the safe, loving environment I had worked so hard to create for them. Yet, I could feel the weight of the battle wearing me down. The phone calls from the lawyers were constant, and the stress of knowing my parents were out there, trying to tear apart everything I had built, felt suffocating. But the deeper I got into this fight, the clearer it became. They weren't just attacking me for the money or the children. They were angry because they had lost control. They had spent years manipulating me into thinking I owed them something, and now, for the first time, I was fighting back. I was breaking free from their grasp, and they couldn't handle it. My parents started reaching out more aggressively. The text messages, the phone calls, the subtle threats. I was bombarded daily. But I had made up my mind. I would not fold this time. Each message, each attempt to pull me back into their toxic world only made me stronger. Then came the day I had been dreading, the hearing. It was a cold morning when I arrived at the courthouse with my lawyer. As I stepped into the courtroom, my heart pounded. I could see my parents sitting across the room, their eyes glaring at me. Daniel was with them, of course, standing by their side as if they were the victims. It disgusted me to see him there, pretending like he had any understanding of the years of emotional pain I had endured. The case unfolded quickly. My lawyer presented all the evidence, the financial records, the text messages, the documentation of my parents' manipulative behavior over the years. But it was when I had to speak that everything shifted. I stood up and looked directly at my parents, finally speaking my truth. "I've spent my whole life trying to be what you wanted," I said, my voice steady, though the emotion was building inside me. "I sacrificed my happiness, my independence, and my family's peace just to keep you happy. But I'm done. I'm done letting you use me. I'm done letting you use my children." The silence in the room was deafening. My parents didn't look at me. They couldn't. It was clear they didn't expect me to be so firm, so certain in my decision. I could see it in their eyes, the shock, the disbelief. But I wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. The judge asked my parents to speak, and their defense was nothing but excuses, manipulative words designed to guilt me into giving in. They accused me of abandoning them when they were old, of taking away their right to see their grandchildren, as though it was their right and not a privilege to be earned. But I stood firm. I wouldn't let them control the narrative anymore. My lawyer spoke next, pointing out the financial betrayal, the emotional manipulation, and the harm they had caused by excluding my children from family gatherings. The case was strong, but there was still that nagging doubt in my mind. What if they still managed to pull some last-minute trick? What if the judge ruled against me? And then, just as I thought things might take a turn for the worse, the judge looked at my parents and asked a simple yet cutting question. "Why should you have access to your grandchildren after all this?" The room was silent. My parents had no response, not one that could justify their actions. They had nothing left to say. When the judge's final decision came, I felt a weight lift from my chest. The ruling was in my favor. The judge ordered that my parents would no longer have unfettered access to my children. They were to respect my boundaries, and if they violated those boundaries again, there would be legal consequences. The words echoed in my mind, legal consequences. Something I had never imagined saying in relation to my own parents. It was done. But the relief didn't come immediately. As I left the courtroom, I felt a mix of emotions. Vindication, yes, but also an overwhelming sadness. I had lost my parents. They would never be the same to me, and I had to accept that. But as I walked out with my children by my side, I realized something important. I had gained something even more valuable. I had gained my freedom. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. My parents didn't contact me. They didn't try to reach out. I wasn't sure if it was pride or shame that kept them quiet, but the silence was deafening. Daniel didn't reach out either, though I suspected he was under pressure from our parents to reach out and talk to me. But I didn't need his apologies. I didn't need anyone to validate me anymore. Instead, I focused on building what mattered, my family, my children, and the future I could now build without the weight of my parents' manipulation hanging over me. It wasn't going to be easy, but I finally felt like I was walking on my own again. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I wasn't just a people pleaser. I was Keziah, and I was going to take control of my life. The weeks after the court ruling were strangely quiet. I had expected some kind of retaliation or a last-ditch effort from my parents to pull me back into their world, but it never came. The silence was overwhelming at first, and I found myself second-guessing whether I'd made the right decision. Had I done the right thing? Was cutting them off truly the answer? But every time doubt crept into my mind, I thought of my children, of their bright, innocent faces, and how much I wanted to protect them from the toxicity that had always surrounded my relationship with my parents. I thought of the years I had spent playing their game, pretending to be someone I wasn't, just to earn their approval. I couldn't go back. I wouldn't. It wasn't long before I started rebuilding my life, piece by piece. My kids and I settled into a new routine, one that didn't involve guilt or anxiety. I no longer had to watch my every move, wondering if it would disappoint my parents. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. Then, just as I thought I was finally free, my phone buzzed one afternoon with an unfamiliar number. Hesitant but curious, I answered. "Keziah?" The voice on the other end was shaky, and I instantly recognized it. It was Daniel. I need to talk to you," he said, his words rushed, almost desperate. "I know you're angry, but Look, I need to apologize. I was wrong. We were wrong." I could feel my heart race. Was this real? For years, Daniel had been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in their eyes, and now he was asking for forgiveness? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Why now, Daniel? After everything?" "I don't know what happened, Keziah. I've seen the truth. I've seen how they've treated you, and it's not right. I was always so blind to it. I never realized how much pain they caused you, and I've been a part of that." His voice cracked, and for the first time I could hear sincerity in his tone. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything." There was a moment of silence between us, a moment where I had to decide how to respond. I had spent my entire life trying to get validation from my parents, from Daniel, but now I was in control. I could forgive him, but I didn't need him to validate me. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was right. I already knew I was. "I appreciate your apology, Daniel," I said calmly, "but this isn't about you or me anymore. It's about my children. They don't deserve to be caught up in this family mess." There was a long pause, but finally he spoke again. "I get it. If you ever want to talk, if you ever want to rebuild, I'm here. I know I've screwed up, but I don't want to lose you." As the conversation ended, I realized something crucial. I had done the work. I had done what was necessary to protect my family and put us on the path to healing, and whether Daniel chose to join us or not was no longer my burden to carry. I had taken control of my life, and that was something I could never go back on. Days turned into weeks, and while the silence from my parents continued, I felt a strange sense of peace. They hadn't reached out, and as the months passed, I started to realize something important. The longer the silence dragged on, the less I felt like I needed their approval. Their absence, rather than their presence, was beginning to feel like freedom. Then, one afternoon, I received a call that I wasn't expecting. It was from a lawyer, not mine, but one representing a business venture I had been working on for the past few months. The project was gaining momentum, and they wanted me to take a more central role as the lead developer. The recognition I had always wanted was finally coming my way. It wasn't about my parents, it wasn't about Daniel, it was about me and my abilities. For the first time in a long time, I realized something. This was the life I had built. No one could take it from me. No one could manipulate me into being who I wasn't. I was finally free to define my own success, and just as things were falling into place, an unexpected letter arrived at my door. The return address was familiar, my parents'. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it, not sure what to expect. Inside was a simple note written by my mother. Keziah, we've made mistakes. We see now how we hurt you. We've lost you and we understand that, but we'll always love you. The letter wasn't an apology. It wasn't a plea for reconciliation. It was simply an admission of what I already knew. They had lost control. But more importantly, they had lost me. And now, I realized, I was free. As I stood in my living room, holding the letter in my hands, I smiled softly. I didn't need their love to feel whole anymore. I had my own life, my own family, and that was all that mattered. And for the first time, I was truly at peace.